Who's mobile outside of Comac?
There's not much of mobile outside of Comac. That's part of what I'm learning. That's part of what I'm learning how to do. You know, I'm the proud dad of a physicist that works out at the National Lab at Los Alamos and a fighter pilot that flies the F-16 in the Guard. I'm married to an amazing woman who writes children's books and is been a fantastic mom and grandmom. I live in the D.C. area because we like all the things you can walk to and do. And I'm originally from Tennessee.
Tennessee football fan?
Yeah, which is, across the bear. I've learned how to separate my happiness from how they do, and I can still enjoy them and talk to my dad about it.
Best thing and worst thing about having left the Air Force?
Thing I miss the most is walking in every morning to a happy little team that's dedicated to, working together to do something good. I miss that little team. I'll see a team on television or something, and it makes me sad sometimes still. The best thing is, having some freedom to plan a life a little bit and to do some things that you want to, and to have a little more control over your schedule and what you do and where you go and how you spend your time.
F-15C or F-15E?
Loved them both. I flew my 3,000 hours in the sea all before 9/11. I really loved being responsible for everything, myself. If it was going to get done, it was up to me to do it and that responsibility. But the older you get, the better the idea some help starts to be. And I enjoyed the transition to learning how to be a good teammate in the Strike Eagle. I spent 13 and a half months in Afghanistan flying about 80 combat sorties in the Strike Eagle, and it's an amazing war machine.
Yeah, the new one looks good as well, huh? Best fighter pilot you ever flew with?
The best fighter pilot, I think the best F-15 pilot I ever flew with is Tom Bergeson that works with us. There's a lot of good ones out there, but I think Guns, may be the best. I knew him when he's a lieutenant up through when he was leading wings, and he's pretty tough to beat. I think Mark Kelly, you have to consider him in that because he's been operational in the F-15E, the F-18 with the Australians, the F-16, and was a wing commander in the F-16 in combat in Afghanistan, and flew the F-35.
Yeah.
And is now rated in the F-15EX as well. What's it like to grow up in the north of England?
It is not like being in California. If you ever saw Billy Elliot, that was a depiction of the area I grew up in at the time I grew up. It was period of Thatcherism, wonderful human beings, warm hearts, but growing up in the northeast of England is definitely a thing. When I joined the Air Force, my horizons broadened enormously, but I still love going back there, and my mom's still there. I'm still very much tied to the place.
Well, I know that you wanted to be a fighter pilot from a very young age, and you set that as your goal, and people told you you'd never make it. People from here don't do that. That's not what we do.
Yeah.
And yet you fought your way through that. Is there any one story you want to tell about that?
There's a good one of the teacher. We were doing, what do you want to be when you grow up? And aspirations for kids, I guess, at that time, in that area were not massive. And I wrote, it was a piece of paper, and I handed it up there, and he was reading them out in class, and he got to mine, and he said, "Mr. Robinson, come stand up here." I thought, great, he loves this. It's the best answer in class. He stands up, he looks down at me and said, "Mr. Robinson thinks he's better than everyone else. He goes, Mr. Robinson wants to be a fighter pilot." Some of the kids were like, "What?" He said, "Go sit down and write something sensible." So I was humiliated. I was a sensitive kid. And I sat down, and I thought, what am I going to write now? And he's reading them out and saying, "Come on, hurry up, hurry up." And so I wrote again. This paper, gave him it. He read it out and said, "Get out of the class." He said, "Give me 10 laps of the playground and the pouring down rain." And it was floor-to-ceiling glass, right? So they're all looking at me. The kids are laughing. And I ran 10 laps of the playground and the pouring down rain because that second piece of paper said I want to be a fighter pilot too. People always ask me, did I ever go back and tell that teacher? And the answer was no.
Tell us, the RAF is famous for being good at low flying. Tell us a RAF low flying story.
In the Falkland Islands, we deploy there once, twice a year sometimes. We do a month at a time protecting the Falkland Islands operationally, which is good fun. We wouldn't get away with it now, but I think we still hold the record for the 47-foot fly past on the air traffic control tower at Mount Pleasant Airfield in the Falklands, and they used to mark it on the tower in the glass, and myself in the backseat of the shore in Maine, anonymous, recently reminded me of that story. I forgot about it.
One day in the RAF, somebody called you in and said, "Hey, Robinson, you're going to go to the United States and fly the F-22 Raptor Tell us about that day.
Yeah. Well, he didn't do that. He called the entire squadron to the bar at night, and I thought I was I'd apply for the F-18 exchange because I wanted to go do Navy flying up carriers. And I knew the shortlist. I thought I had a decent shortlist, and he made this big announcement. Dan's been to weapons school, he's worked hard, etc., etc. You all know as the shortlist for the F-18. On this occasion, he's been unsuccessful. And I was devastated. I thought, in front of I was really upset. And he let me sit with that. And they said, hang on a second, there's a reason he hasn't been selected for the F-18. And the reason is he's just been selected as the first F-22 exchange pilot. And I dropped my pint of Guinness, which is tantamount to treason in the UK. And the next thing I know, I'm on the ground getting beaten up by the squadron. And 4 weeks later, I was in the US flying to fly Raptors.
One thing I've learned about Dan is that Dan collects interesting people. Wherever Dan goes, there's some interesting people that are his friends for life. Tell us a story about that.
Well, I think if you look at Red 6, what people don't necessarily realize is, for the Air Force guys looking in, they'll recognize some of the pilots here that we all know and love that are all exceptional. But there are many chapters of my life here, including friends that go 20 plus years back from the many chapters of my life that I lived since leaving the U.S. Air Force. When I look at Red 6, I look at it through a very different prism because I see many different chapters of my life connected together that I never thought would ever interact with each other. And it's just been a wonderful thing to include yourself in an alternative universe. We would never have known each other, except for that it was probably T-Mac that hunted you down at WebTech. When we sat in that van that day and when we talked about Red 6, we absolutely had no idea that you would ultimately end up coming to Red 6. What was the decision that got you here?
I often tell people, they say, what will it take to get you to do this? Well, you'd have to ask me. You asked me. And when you asked me, you didn't just make it a casual thing. You let me know, why you wanted me to be a part of the team, why you wanted to collect me into your circle, and what we were trying to do. And I think, although we're from different places all around the world, and like you said, we might not have ever met each other, we both grew up kind of in rural areas where people didn't do the things that we ended up doing. We both got a chance to go test ourselves in this great environment that we grew up in, where you are on a team with people that you're with together, but you're competing with every day, but you're supporting every day as well. And it's a fantastic environment for finding out a little bit about who you really are. And as you grow up in the Air Force, or as I've watched you grow up, taking a company, from employee one up to a company with 100 employees and revenue coming in. I think we both found that as you grow up, you spend a lot more of your time than maybe you anticipated working people issues and solving people problems.
For sure.
And finding the right person for the right job, and finding the right job for people that you collected, but maybe they're not working in a job and you've got to find another one. And I think one of the things I've enjoyed the most about being on the board with you is being a part of some of those conversations and watching you work through some of those things.
And I've definitely leaned on you a lot. And as you know, I had to make some really difficult decisions at times that I live with forever. I didn't have this much gray hair when I started Red 6. What's your biggest fear in life?
I'm a fairly calm person. I try not to give too much counsel to my fears. I had to get over a temper. Growing up in the Air Force, I had a terrible temper. And I had to master that temper a little bit to have a chance to keep moving up in the Air Force. I think the biggest fear in my life is the idea that, hey, there's a finite time limit, and I'm not going to be around to take care of the people that I love as long as maybe I would like to. And they have people that will do that, but I think sometimes you think about that.
What do you think of Lieutenant Petey?
Lieutenant Petey is a pretty good dog.
Pretty good? He's a pretty good.
Get on over here. Lieutenant Petey, I have seen Lieutenant Petey in a lot of environments. I've seen him in airports. I've seen Petey in his Instagram account. I've seen Petey in the movie theater. I've seen Petey stroll down the streets of Washington, D.C., owning the place.
Yeah.
He's a pretty good dog. One of the things you do learn, we talked about, being a part of that team and being a part. You're in multiple squadrons. You're in squadrons that are good squadrons. You're in squadrons that are not so good squadrons. You have squadron commanders that are awesome.
Yeah.
You have squadron commanders that, you think are not that awesome. And along the way, you learned some things about building a team. This Red 6 team that you built, what guided you in building this camaraderie that you have on your Red 6 team?
What I tried to do is synthesize multiple opposing viewpoints from, what I didn't want is just a bunch of fighter pilots saying this is the way that it needs to be done, and it's always been done, all kinds of stuff. So those guys needs to be challenged, and equally, we need those guys challenging, the tech guys that are building it, as well as other viewpoints from the MBAs and all the other guys we have. So first and foremost, I look for two things, really. Are they talented, smart? Are they nonlinear thinkers? And secondly, I think most importantly is, we've talked about it many times, are their value systems aligned to the fundamental values that I believe in, that we try to embody at Red 6? Because I do believe talent above all else is really important, but talent with the wrong values will kill a company really, really quickly. So as I think about culture, remember the old 1 in 60 rule in radar theory?
All right.
1 degree of separation at a mile is not far, but 1 degree at 60 miles is a long way off track. So I tend to be pretty ruthless in terms of adhering to the culture of the business and not letting that drift. And I look to people to help me in that initiative, because I think when things are great, everyone enjoys coming to work. When things are tough, when you're working through problems, it's the culture that finds you together. And so I really try to synthesize that as carefully as I can. I look for people that I believe will positively contribute to that culture above all else.
So that same kid that you talked about that was willing to write down, I want to be a fighter pilot twice, even after he got laughed at, and ran the 10 laps, and if he had asked you, you'd have probably said it again.
Yeah.
When you came in wet and cold after running 10 laps, that's the same kid then that did become a fighter pilot. That's the same kid that had the nerve to, leave the UK and everything they knew and go do something different. We talked about, you landed at Dulles and a guy handing you an envelope and saying good luck. That was your introduction to the United States, and you had to find your way through. But then that's the same kid who had the nerve to leave the RAF when it was time and go to business school. That's the same kid that was able to go home and take a business that was in really bad shape and take what you had learned about business school and about leading people and put that team back in shape. And that's the same person that was bold enough then to take an idea about something new and turn it into a company that's raised a lot of money and has 100 employees and is providing something new. What thread runs through all that?
I'm completely unemployable.
You can only work for yourself.
I started life as a milkman. That was my first job. And I was a milkman. I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to earn money because I wanted to fly airplanes. That was my route to do it. But I always had a passion, and I always liked to do things the way I like to do things, and what I believe is the right way to do things. It's such an extraordinary privilege to go fly the airplanes we got to fly. I ultimately believed that at some point you're going to have to stop flying, and I wanted to be in control of my own destiny. And so I made that leap, and I backed myself to go do these other things. And then, of course, you get curveballs in life that you just have to deal with, that you're not expecting when you get calls on a Monday morning, like the call I got. And sometimes life just tells you where you got to go. And you got to ask yourself, I'm at the right place at the right time with the right experience, education, skill sets, but do I have the right character to do what was being asked of me in that particular circumstance? And then having come all the way through that to Red 6 in this chapter of my life, I thought, well, that crystallized a lot of things in my mind as to what was important and what wasn't. The idea of intuition and following both a purpose and a passion and doing it the way you want to do it. I was lucky to find a problem set that I really cared about. It involved flying, which really helped. And I figured I could really make a difference in the world if I put the right people around me. So I'm like, hey, why not? It's like building a fighter squadron, but you only get to take the people you want, right?
Okay, so here you are. You're at this stage in your life. You still get to wear a flight suit to work in the Raptor squadron. They called you Bond as your nickname. You got the beard, you got the hair, you got the accent, you got the dog. What's it going to take to settle down and find somebody?
It is not that I don't want to, but it turns out this Red 6 thing is 6 full-time jobs in one. And as you know, dealing with the Department of Defense is extremely difficult for anyone. Dealing with the Department of Defense as a young, small startup is all-consuming. But I like to think it's an investment in my future as well. And
absolutely,
when the time is right and God tells me I'm ready, I'm hopeful that will happen.
when I gave up squadron command, I went to war college. That's typically what you do in the U.S. military. When you come out of squadron command, if you're going to have a chance to get promoted, you go to war college. And, it was a very busy time as a squadron commander, a couple of deployments. And I got to war college, and I came home one day about 1:30, and, my wife looked at me. And I came home the next day about 1:15, and she said, "We need to talk." She said, you are getting over an affair with the 27th Fighter Squadron. And it's okay. I knew you were having, I knew you were doing it. I allowed it. I participated in it. But, I can't fill up all the holes in your life that are left when you gave up command to the 27th Fighter Squadron. So find something to do in the afternoons. Come home about 4:30, and I'll be happy to see you. And we'll work through, what we're going to go through. You have that same kind of all-consuming approach to Red 6. It's about what you're trying to produce, but it's about the people that you've, have become important to you. I've seen that. What's after Red 6?
When is the right time to think about life post Red 6? When this technology is in the hands of the people we care about. And I look at my teammates around us and go, yeah, we've done something good here. I know this vision is the right vision. I'm just absolutely focused on making sure that we're the team that delivers this. After Red 6, I'll still fly airplanes. Hopefully we'll fly airplanes together. I'll probably come up with a little harebrained scheme.
In this world we're in, where you also spend a lot of time trying to find the money to keep this thing going, and how hard it is to work through the government. Often they don't understand the timelines. They don't understand that you're trying to make your payroll. You have people you care about that you've made promises to, and you'd like to keep paying them so they can keep working and so they can feed their families. You've had to learn to work through all those things and balance that part of it too.
So let me ask you this. What have you learned that challenged preconceived notions around what it was to run a business, leaving the Air Force and seeing the evolution of Red 6 from the ground up?
I just don't think I understood how hard everything is running a business. In retirement, I've gotten a chance to watch several people run some different businesses. I've been advisors, to people. And frankly, I've learned more from them than I think they have from me in those advisors' positions. But just how hard it is, how hard every little single thing is. We go to school and they talk about Clausewitz, and, he says, in war, even the simplest thing is impossible, which is something that you learn when you go do it. Things that seem really easy turn out to be really hard. The big lesson for me is that nothing happens accidentally. We think about these guys that we think we're lucky.
Yep.
We think about guys that had some stroke of good fortune, and all of a sudden, they have a product that takes off and it works. But I've just become convinced it doesn't happen that way.
No, it's that 10-year overnight success story.
It's just work.
What would be your ideal Last Supper?
My ideal Last Supper. My kids joke, and the meal that in our family is that my wife would make when I'd come home from deployment, she'd make a catfish meneer with some stuff to go with it, and she still will make that for me occasionally. My perfect Last Supper would probably involve some part of a pig.
Oh, really?
Yep. I have a hard time resisting eating some part, cooked some way of a pig. I'd like to give you a classier answer than that.
What is, you clearly, like all good fighter pilots, married way above yourself. Sarah and I have gotten to know each other pretty well of late, and I love her immensely. She's an amazing human being. What's your favorite quality about your wife?
She has a spark that I think is unique. She has a way of letting herself show through. And when I first saw her for the first time, I saw that spark from across the room in an environment where she was in front of people doing something. And I just felt like I want to get to know more about that person and that spark. And she still has it. She's still, when you go places, people want to talk to her, people want to be around her, people want to share in what she knows and what she's learned.
Yeah, she's an amazing woman. If you had to describe the culture at Red 6, how would you describe it?
Well, at Air Combat Command, we called our culture people first, mission always. You can have a lot of argument about that. We did that on purpose with the idea that if you find the right people and you give them the resources and tools and the things that they need, that they'll take care of getting the mission done. I think Red 6, the thing that I see is that, it's certainly your company, Dan. So you only have to spend 5 minutes in the company to see your hand and your fingerprints, on every part of it, including the people that have come in. But through that, you found a way to give people space to take responsibility and accountability and move out and get things done on their own. And I think the thing that sticks out to me is that, as I walk around, as I visit here, as I visit in Orlando, as I'm around the people, it's not an environment where you have brought people in that are sitting there waiting for somebody to tell them what to do. Red 6 is built around initiative. It's built around a common understanding of a goal that we're trying to achieve, and a lot of communication to make sure people understand that. And if it changes, how it changes, and to keep people on board. But it's a place that's built around initiative, I think, is a word I would take.
If you could communicate one message to the United States Air Force or the U.S. government at large, in terms of what they could do better and what they need to know, what they think they know, which is not correct, what would it be?
I think it would be the clock is ticking, and so you can't be cautious and you can't be afraid. The clock is ticking, and so you've got to go try new things, and you've got to take advantage of all the tools that you have to build something that works like it always has, but is better and fits in the environment. And what can we do we worked hard on it in Air Combat Command, not unique. Like Minahan at AMC, is doing a lot of the same things. So a lot of other commanders is trying to encourage our people that there's a war coming where you won't be able to sit on your hands and wait for somebody to tell you what to do. You're going to have to use your own judgment, use imperfect, incomplete data, make your best decision, and move out and lead your people to execute it. And, I want to continue to help the Air Force, build that mindset and go out and use the authorities that you have and imperfect data and make the best decision you can and try to make things a little bit better. I got to fly with you yesterday in Red 1 in the Berkut that you built. And, you're a great pilot. I didn't say you're the best pilot, but you're a great pilot.
You just didn't fly.
Yeah. No, you're a great pilot. But there's something we talked about the fact watching you fly that airplane that you built with your own hands. I watch you, reach down and flick a switch. I watch you look at something. I watch you, watching the control services move out there. And I realize that's something I don't really know or understand. I flew a lot of great airplanes that a lot of super people worked on, and I had confidence in them. But this thing of having something that started with, styrofoam, and now you're flying it around and every part of it, how it works. What's that like? How's that different?
It's the craziest feeling. I think we discussed yesterday, there's such an intimate knowledge of that airplane that I know it on a fundamentally different level. I feel it, I can close my eyes and tell you how fast it's going. Within 5 knots of, the airplane's flight. It's an immense sense of pride. Building an airplane is really, really difficult. Building a Berkut, which is largely a composite airplane where you're physically making the parts and laying up the carbon fiber and everything is such a hard task. And, people see Red 6, but the thing that predated Red 6 was 18 to 19 months of really, really hard work, 14-hour days, rain and shine, with a small team of really dedicated individuals that helped me build it, namely the designers, London, Dave Ronenberg, and of course, Chris Randall, who's still at Red 6. But you put that level of effort into it, the airplane on just a fundamentally different level. And it's really an extension. When I fly, it's an extension of me. So it's a wonderful, intimate feeling. It's an interesting observation you made.
It was late afternoon in Southern California. It was a rare cloudy day. There was just enough clouds to make flying interesting, but not too much to fly around VFR, and they're changing colors as the sun starts to go down and you have the coastline and the water. It was a spectacular opportunity to spend some time together.
Yeah, it really was.
Last question is, how do you define success for Red 6?
Success for Red 6, for the mission, it's getting this technology into the hands of the people that need it. AETC, all the way through ACC and beyond, and to include the partner nations. We're doing some great work with the The RAF are going really quickly right now. It's amazing to see. They're really embracing it. So if I get this technology into the hands of warfighter, I've done a good job. The overarching sentiment, though, is that I really take care of the people that are part of this company and ensure the right outcome for everyone. And that's not just the people that work for me. It's the multiple investors that we depend on that have taken risk as well to back this vision. A nice outcome for everyone would be wonderful, but fundamentally the technology has to get into the hands of the warfighters. They need it. We need to keep educating the Air Force as to how important this is, and that's our mission. But that's what success looks like to me.
One of the things that you've done very well at, and you've had help in the company, but one of the things you've done very well is create this brand, this image of Red 6 that's widely recognized. Sarah told me she was playing golf today and she was wearing a Red 6 jacket, and everybody wanted to know all about it and what it meant. And, it creates questions. From time to time, I told you, that I had some skepticism about whether you'd be able to get it done. There are people that, take the view that maybe Red 6 is more flash and less, delivery. I think we've seen over the 6 years that we're at the point where that flash and that interest that you need to raise money and get attention and build a company are turning into real products that can go in real airplanes at the hands of real warfighters. So congratulations on getting that done. And I think the people that might think, it's a public relations exercise are really going to be interested to see the products when they're out there.
Well, I think, look, I appreciate the sentiment. And the thing we've always stated is just come see it for yourself.
Yep.
Everything we put out there on video is real. None of it is rendered. None of it is doctored. None of it is post-edited. It's real, raw footage. And everything you see in real life is 10 times better than what you see. And generally, the stuff we show is 6 months to a year old.
Yep.
So you've seen it. You know what it looks like for real.
Okay. Petey says it's time to go.
Every fighter pilot will say the other person's a better fighter pilot, except guns.